Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. Today we're at property address 2939 Hunter Way here in West Lynn. I describe everything as if you're standing in the street, facing the front door of the house or the front of the house in general. We are just to the left of the front doorway. You have a fantastic landmark here to find your clean out in case you ever lose it. It's 6 days or so, but if it gets buried, it sits directly in front of the first foundation vent to the left of the doorway. And I mean, smack dab straight in front of it. About 16 inches away from the house. Anyway, 3-inch ABS clean out sewer line. Water is running. We're going to zero the foot counter out here at the bottom of the clean out, and off we go. And we're swapping over to PVC pipe immediately upon access, and that's changing diameter to 4-inch PVC. And right out of the gate, I'm loving how that flow line looks right there. That is a spiffy clean flow line. That's precisely how you want your line to look. And that's made possible by essentially one main living habit, and that is not putting cooking oil and grease down your line, fats in general, down your kitchen sink drain. I'm a big stickler on that. After 13 years of scoping sewer lines, I am much more concerned about thick grease buildup in your line than a lot of structural issues, like bellies and offset joints, which, don't get me wrong, can theoretically lead to a problem. However, what I've found is it's often grease buildup in conjunction with abusive items like paper towels, wipes, flushable wipes, or gigantic balls of toilet paper. That at the end of the day, that's often what makes the line act up. You get a bunch of grease buildup in and around a bellied area or something like that. It just slows everything down, causes stuff to stick to the pipe that would otherwise continue to move. You know, it's a very good maintenance item to keep up with. We just transitioned there to 6-inch concrete. It looks like we're right in front of the main here. Looks like kind of a funky hard turn there right at the end. Alright, there's your main lateral connection, about 60, we'll call it 66 feet, we're close enough. Yeah, we'll get a nicer view of everything as we come back out once the line is drained. Thus far, the line certainly has good flow. The one part of the line I want to take a closer look at is the concrete pipe. This is just the older stuff, it's a little more murky. You gotta look at it a little bit closer when the line's drained out. The rest of the line is looking fantastic. Concrete is just also a little bit more concerning pipe product, especially as it ages. It wears out in a little bit more spectacular fashion than your plastic piping, for instance. Especially, a lot of it's due to the pipe joints. The pipe joints are grouted, where your more modern day stuff, even older stuff, has ferncoes, and your cast iron pipe, for instance, has a rubber fernco. Plastic pipe have couplers, glue, and ferncoes, which are much stronger pipe joints. Concrete pipe has grout, and eventually the grout gives out. It happens to every concrete line out there, and clay pipe for that matter. So we're going to take a close look at that here as we come back out. But as far as flow goes, the line certainly has good flow to the main lateral. Alright, located the camera head successfully. So you might want to keep your eyes peeled for the easement documents and through title. My assumption is that you've got an easement here either for this property or potentially for the one adjacent to us to the left of us. So as you look at this house from the street, once again, the line exits out just to the left of the door. The line makes its way down the hill and orients to the far left side of the property. When you get about, visually speaking, if you were basically on the property line on the far left side of the property, about 10 feet before you get down to the sidewalk, the line terminates at the main. Just beyond that, if you keep following that same trajectory down the hill to the road, you'll see directly in line with that is a manhole just past the curb. And that's generally a good indicator. I like to see a manhole in line with it. What that tells you, I mean nearly 100% of the time anyway, is that is a main lateral for the city. It's the city's main. They had to run one down the property, likely to service houses behind this one that couldn't otherwise get to a main lateral. The wonderful part about that is you get to take advantage of that. You have a very unique sewer line here in that 100% of your sewer line is under just grass and dirt. That is something that about 99% of homes cannot say. The rest of them go under sidewalks, driveways, roadways, and the big importance in that is when you go, if you ever have to do a repair on this thing, you're never cutting a street open, a driveway, anything of that sort. Saves a humongous amount of money. So that's a wonderful thing for now and looking into the future. Mostly as it relates to the concrete pipe. The stuff I could, and it's not like the rest of the line isn't susceptible to things like root intrusions, but that is the number one thing that, that's where concrete is the weakest, is against roots. The joints just are not as strong and seal up quite as nicely, and they deteriorate over time. Unlike a lot of other pipe joints, they deteriorate, but not quite in the same way. So, if this is a house you're going to be in a long time, the other thing that can happen with concrete pipe, and again, this is not right now. I don't want you worrying about it right this second. This is if you're at this house long enough to see, you know, that material wear out and get to a point where it's ready for update. The other thing that occurs with concrete pipe as those joints wear out, and the same goes for plastic if it happens too, but concrete is, you can predict that it's going to happen every time. It's just a matter of time. Eventually, when the joints start to get exposed to the ground and moisture, groundwater is usually the first thing that happens. Is groundwater starts to seep through. It will also draw dirt with it, and what that does is hydro erosion. It progressively, usually it's a slow but sure process, and on a steep hill like this, usually it takes place slower. But what happens is it'll hydro erode the soil from around the sewer line, and remove the support from under the sewer pipe. And what then happens is you get settling. If you notice at the very end of the sewer line, this is just an example of settling. It's not concerning, but the very end of the line, right before you hit the main, about the last foot of the line has got about a 1/4 inch of standing water in it or so, which is no big deal. That's why I didn't even talk about it. You have to flood. Anyway. That's what starts to happen over time. That settling there is just looks like it's just due to not completely compacted soil when the line was first installed, and it settled a little bit. But when you get bad pipe joints, it can progress and it can turn into inches of standing water, and you don't want that to happen. Especially if you want to take advantage of our new modern trenchless epoxy liner systems. In this case, you'd probably still have to put a 4-inch cleanout in if you ever got to that point of needing to update it. Right in front of this cleanout, you'd have to install a 4-inch one. You need the larger access point. But if you keep an eye on that line, I would rescope about every 3 years. You don't need to lose sleep over it necessarily, but you want to keep an eye on them. When you start seeing the joints allowing moisture to go through them, it's not at that point in time where all of a sudden the line's just going to fall apart. It usually takes years for it to happen. But you want to start budgeting for a liner if you want to go that route. And if you don't want to go that route and don't care, you can dig it up the good old-fashioned way too. In this case, you're not necessarily going to get the same cost savings as if you were lining a pipe under a road. That's where keeping an eye on the line is extra important. But you still have a liner that's on a hillside. The line's fairly deep, and if you can avoid digging, it's ideal not to. So anyway, that's advice for the future. That's not today. We have great flow all the way to the main lateral. All the pipe we just scoped here, all the plastic pipe is in good condition and very clean. The concrete pipe, I would say, is in fair to good condition for its age. It's very par for the course for the age that it is, and also has good flow. And the standing water at the end of the line there is so minor and rinky-dink, that's not even going on my report. I just wanted to kind of give you an example of what settling looks like. That's what you get there. And a 1/4 inch of standing water in most cases can be epoxy lined over the top of. What you don't want to let happen, though, is a line to wear out so badly that it becomes, you start getting offset joints, significant bellies, things like that, that will prevent you from being able to do a liner on it. So, anyway. As we sit here today, beautifully functioning sewer line, and it's a very clean sewer line to boot. There's a little bit of buildup way out in the concrete pipe, which is fairly common to see. Concrete's got a little bit rougher texture to it and tends to collect things a little easier, but it's way at the end of the sewer line where it poses zero risk of causing flow issues. Now, sewer line is functioning properly at this time.